So I'm aware that there's a Buffy reboot. My hair looks bad. I'm aware that there's a Buffy reboot, and I just want to give some talk about it because I don't know, like, why it never happened. Like, I believe that lots of people have known about me for a very long time, and I believe that they must know that Buffy is my favourite show. That was Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So I don't know why Xander doesn't know anything, and I don't know if Buffy knows or if Spike knows. I mean, on one hand, I feel like they do, but on the other hand, I feel like a lot of characters, a lot of people seem to do that. It's like they know through the pictures. So like if something happens, and then I see their picture pop up on a post, and it's almost like the picture is in a way, it is designed in a way, or the facial expressions is designed in a way that makes me think that they know about what I'm going through, and or know what I've just posted, even though that picture was taken probably years ago and probably might not have anything to do with what I posted, but it kind of like talks to me basically, and this is happening for a long time, and I because of this, I don't know what's real and what's not. It's hard to tell what's real and what's not because it feels like everyone knows, and then I get confused. You know, I know that Xander's had some mental problems for a long time, and that's why I've never tried to contact him before. I was hoping that people would talk to me, put me on some sort of show, and then I could have like a big Buffy party with all of them, and that's when I would like focus on what's going on with them. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Xander. But he definitely blocked me, and if you block someone, they can't see your profile and you can't see theirs, and I was kind of expecting it because I was saying some crazy things, but it's the truth, and I was hoping that he would have enough spirit inside of him to recognize that. But yeah, from listening to the things that he was saying, I didn't think that would be the case. But do the others know? I don't know. They do seem a lot more saner than Xander. I think Xander's I don't know what's happened to him, but it's a shame that there's going to be a reboot and he's not in it, because he was in every single show except for one, and I've just done some research into him a bit, and I've already talked about that, but I've done a little bit of research into Josh Whedon because he was the main person, and I guess I have a little bit of interest in him because I really liked the creator. You know, the two things I liked most when I was growing up was Britney Spears and how she looked at the beginning, not later on, but how she looked at the beginning, and Buffy. So the creators of Buffy and the creator of Britney, these two meant a lot to me, even though I had no clue who they were and never did any research and literally had no clue. Yeah, you know, they haven't brought back Buffy. I don't really know why. You know, I would have thought there would have been some sort of spin-off. You had the spin-off of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I didn't really like. I mean, it was okay. It was okay. It was good for the modern person, but you know, the thing I like most about Buffy is that she has a very humble character, and it's also very realistic, and it's also very relatable, and you know, she's saving the world and she's doing, you know, a lot in the show, but she never seems to get cocky, and she always stays focused on what she's doing, and therefore it's very interesting to know about the production of this company. You know, I believe that my higher self has literally gone through every single episode and helped as a ghostwriter to do these shows, and therefore any misbehavior that would have happened on the show, my higher self knows. You know, I know my higher self knows, and if I don't have any memory of it, but if I'm trying to think about like the situation, you know, I heard in one interview that Spike said that he once pushed him up a wall and threatened him, and yeah, for some reason I can see that in my head. I feel like I can remember that, but at the same time I feel like I know what Josh Whedon was thinking at the time, which was that I'm creating, you know, these characters, I'm creating these monsters. Basically, he's creating a film full of monsters, and I think a part of him loves the show so much that he actually like wants to be that strength. You know, the monsters could impress Buffy because they had a lot of strength, and as humans we don't have that kind of strength. No human does, and no Slayer does, because Slayers don't actually exist, and therefore I feel like if Whedon had expressed some sort of violent tendencies towards people, I feel like he when I'm trying to see it in my head, it's like trying to gain a memory that I lost, but I don't actually have, because it was a ghost that, I'm pretty sure I know everything that happens, but I can't remember it. So I'm saying what I think happened, and I'm trying to analyze what I think I would have seen, even though the characters themselves wouldn't have seen it. And I don't want to make an excuse for him, because technically I don't actually know what's going on. Maybe I'm saying that things were better than it was, but I feel like a part of him was creating all these characters that were much more stronger than him, much more powerful than him, and I felt like he wanted to have that same kind of power that the monsters did. And I think that the root cause of it is part of creating the monsters is, Buffy likes the stronger guys, and I feel like if he came off that way, it might have just because of some sort of subconscious attraction towards the character that he's creating in the whole liking the sort of stronger guy, and him trying to be or live out the stronger guy. And yes, I feel like that's might be what's going on in his mind. And I feel like when it comes to Cordelia's Chase, I feel like he himself, Josh, had a sort of past where he was I literally don't know nothing about him, but I'm saying from my memory, a memory that doesn't even exist, because I've never been to any of these sets, and I think it's filmed in America, in LA, but I don't know, have no clue. But yeah, I think like the popular gorgeous person that is kind of like the leader of the class, and everyone looks up to, on one hand you don't want them to be that, on one hand you want them to be more humble, and you want them to, and so if he started insulting her, I feel like it was because of a sort of a hatred towards this character that he's created. So I don't necessarily think it had, maybe from, it might not see from her perspective, but I think from his perspective he would have seen it as hating this character that you're supposed to hate, because they are usually the ones that are like really bitchy to people and stuff, and I feel like maybe he was getting carried away with the characters that he was creating, and starting to see the actors as being the characters. Hence, if he did start insulting her and saying belittling things, I feel like it might have come from a hatred of just hating the popular kid. If he wasn't the popular kid, you might feel, I was not the popular kid in the first few years, but I know in the second year of boarding school, I suddenly changed my clothing, and I suddenly had a lot more different hairstyles, and looking a lot better, and for a few years I did feel not popular, but I felt like I was prettier than the rest, because it was a boarding school and no one really paid any attention to their looks and stuff. And I didn't in the first year, but I did a lot in the second year, and I did feel kind of prettier than most, because I started making a bit more effort. And so I don't have that hatred, because on one hand I feel like I can relate to both the sort of introvert character and the more confident character. I think it's because my dyslexia became it became better in the second year. Maybe actually that was because when I started using the computer. I think in the first year, when I was 13 to 14, most things were done on paper, and yeah, my spelling is very, very bad if it's not on computer. If it's on computer, it tells you, and you can actually help yourself, but I was born in 87, so I was not born when computers were really that popular, and most of my childhood we didn't have computers or until we were a bit older and stuff. So, but yes, I don't want to make excuses for him, but at the same time, I feel like any misbehavior or something, it might be due to the character creating and stuff, and almost wanting to play out, and maybe narcissism as well. I think he's got a taste of narcissism, but I feel like I have too. I have a lot of narcissism towards the world that's treated me badly, and yeah, I know that Michelle said that he wasn't allowed to be with her. I don't know what his past life was, but I do believe that in his past life he had a life where he was an older person who married a very younger person, but that was back then completely normal. And I feel like sometimes if people do have a strong attraction towards a 16-year-old when they're in their later years, I feel like a lot of people might feel this way because reincarnation is the truth, and a lot of people in the past used to think that that kind of relationship was fine. It was fine for an adult to marry a child. Now we all know it's not okay now, but yeah, if you did it in your past, and if you actually enjoyed being with a much younger person, then it's hard to shake. It's hard to shake that away from you, and I think humans need to be a lot more tolerant to the fact that people had different paths. I think R. Kelly has one of his best life. His best life was probably the one where he was in that pyramid, and I think he had loads of wives, probably about 8 or 9 or something, and that was just completely normal. And therefore, if he was to replay that, he's just living out something that he did in his past life, and that was fine for him. And now it's been misunderstood, and people interpret it as like a sort of sex cult or something, when a few 2,000 years ago that would have been completely normal and acceptable. And I think people don't understand things because they just see it from their perspective, and they don't realize that it sex with a 16-year-old is not, it's not right, but at the same time it's not a huge crime. It's not a huge crime. And 100 years ago, it would have been normal. It would have been expected of you to marry a 16-year-old. I mean, it's wrong. But if you're, especially if you're older, it's fine. But yeah, it's just that's just what I want to say. And but yes, I don't know what the show is going to be, but I don't know. I've heard that they didn't particularly like the sort of overpoweringness that Josh had. I feel like there might have been a sense of negativity or stuff, but I feel like that in the character though, because Buffy in the series, she was very depressing. I was listening to that video and they were talking about why Xander wasn't a good character. I've never seen it from that perspective, because I always thought Xander was a very good character. And I think actually that's another interesting point that I'd like to make. I see Buffy as like my insert character. Am I actually like her? I don't know. Probably not. But I feel like I would like to be like her, or I would want to be like that. And just positive. I mean, I'm not like that now because I'm so much more negative. But back then I was more positive, and it's like, oh, it's fine. She was very like positive and just thinking of making things better, and I liked that, and I feel like I was an insert, that Buffy was an insert of me. And it was interesting how this person was saying that that the Xander character was an insert of him, and then he was insulting the character and saying that Xander was just a horny teenager who kind of obsessed about every girl, and that kind of was his point. But it was funny, and it was. I had been to I've been to like 7 different schools. Okay, there was a few mixed. It was all the first ones were mixed, but it was very much the age where it was like girls on this side and boys on that side. So we kept very separate. And then in a secondary school, the dyslexic school was. I only went there 3 days. At Sylvia Young, there was only about five guys and about 20 females or something like that. It was very much more female than male, and I didn't really talk to the males that much. And then in the second one I went to, the special dyslexic school, there was about 3 boys and about 7 girls, or about 10 girls maybe. It was a very small school, and I hardly ever showed up, and I didn't enjoy it, and I homeschooled myself 2 days a week, and then in my boarding school that was all girls, and then I went to a 6th form college, but that was massive, and it just went from like. There was a lot of guys in the DT class, but I never showed up to that. And then in the art class, that was all girls. The design technology class, no, the graphics class, I don't know. I wasn't really that talkative in that class. And then in the architecture, that was probably about 50-50. But I don't know, I never really I never had a guy friend. And so Buffy kind of, even though Xander might not be the perfect guy, or anything, but it's kind of like if I compare him to the people that I knew in there was none in boarding school, but if I compare him to the people I knew in the sixth form college, then he was so much better than them. So, but yeah, I don't know. Yes, some of his jokes are just so not funny, but at the same time, sometimes it's hard to to make funny jokes. I don't know, like they were cheery, and I liked the character, and I don't think that I don't think it was one of the worst characters, no. But yes, it's interesting how he's turned into a drunk now, because yeah, his jokes are not just not funny any longer. They're like, are you okay? Because that's not. I don't know. It was a bit disappointing. I hope he's stopped. He's blocked me, so I can't actually see what videos he's posting now. But I kind of hope that he's not posting those videos any longer. You know, if he wants to post and talk, great. But please make yourself look a bit more presentable. Please talk a bit more logically. I don't know what mental illness is, and I would love to just believe that he could just snap out of it. Just say, all right, from now on, I'm not mentally ill. I'm not going to say strange things. I'm not going to make weird sexual jokes that aren't funny in any way. Did Xander do that? Yes, but there was a bit of funniness to it, and I don't know. I mean, I suppose it was in that age, in the 90s, guys were just openly like sexual, and that was just kind of like the norm. It wasn't if a guy had pride and didn't want a girl fighting his battles, that was just kind of how or I thought how guys were. I didn't actually know that many, so but yeah. Can the reboot do without him? Yeah, I think so. But it's I don't know. It's interesting because yeah, will it change much? I know Joss Whedon apparently threatened to expel Cordelia a lot of times. I don't know if he did it to many others. And I think it was a big shame when Cordelia got taken out. When it turned out that Cordelia had actually left the show, I was shocked, and I didn't want Angel to end. But when Cordelia left, I was kind of like, well, now if it ends, I don't actually care. Like, that was when Cordelia was no longer in the show. I kept hoping that they'd bring her back, and when she didn't come back, I was like, okay, if this show ends, if this show only gets one more season, then I don't really care, because I really liked Cordelia, so I don't know why he got rid of her. Yeah, I if she ever hears me and knows about me, then just know that wasn't my decision. I would have kept you until the end. But it's nice that you went by going into some sort of light, but it didn't make sense. You needed to come back, so I don't understand that. I feel like Angel lost his purpose because Angel does fight, but at the same time he usually has someone that he fights for, and Buffy gave him a reason to fight for something, and then when he lost Buffy, he got Cordelia, and I felt like that join needed to be very strong, and when Cordelia died, it was just like, really? So he's just on his own now? I mean, I think that's kind of a shame, if someone's like 200 years old and they have a really strong connection with Buffy, and then they lose that connection, but they have another connection who actually knows Buffy, I feel like that kind of tied and gave him a better, stronger connection, and then when he lost her. So if Josh was making out that she wasn't that important, I think that was very wrong. But yeah, I do know though that I love how the characters aren't too boastful or aren't too cocky. I feel like if you were to do a modern day Slayer, they would be boastful. And it's like if you've had a boyfriend and he's treated you like crap, and you're poor, but you just choose to go into music and write an album about how awful that boyfriend was, and then say that album became hugely successful, and you went on to become a millionaire or billionaire even, I don't know what a millionaire, I can't tell the difference. If you just go on to make lots of money and then make more albums, and then say you get to a point where you're recognized and very established, and then you think, I'm going to start suing the guy that did all that shit to me. I mean, on one hand, okay, he shouldn't have done that, but on the other hand, it's because he did that you were able to make the album that you did, and you were able to get to yourself, be stronger, and to do something that would actually make you rich and make you famous. And therefore, if you hadn't have had such an abusive boyfriend or whatever, you wouldn't have been you might have not ended up going down the path that you did, and you could just be ending up working in some sort of shop all day, every day. You know, there's tons of abuse that happens inside shops. There's tons of abuse that if you're working in a bin man or working in a restaurant, you know, a lot of cooks like to swear at each other and stuff. I do massage, so I've been groped quite a lot of times, and it's just part of, I can't say anything because I'm not famous and stuff, and so I don't like it when people become famous and then start complaining about all the things that they had to do to get famous, because at the end of the day there are plenty of people that have gone through far worse and they never got any fame, and because they never got any fame, no one gives a shit about anything that happened to them. And that is how I kind of feel like a lot has happened to me, and I feel like because I'm not famous, no one will give a shit. And there's a lot of people that bad things happen to a lot of people, and so it's annoying to think that, you know, if someone is being insulted and they're also like a big star and stuff, it would be weird it's weird to think how that would get so much more sympathy just because they're successful. Because at the end of the day, it's like, well, maybe the only reason why you became successful was because of, you know, the abuse that made the character what it was. You know, I think if you were to create a modern day character, I can imagine the character being, you know, just a lot more cocky, a lot more me, a lot more I'm only caring about my looks. And this is just how the modern day society is, because, you know, we have things that protect against abuse, but at the same time I feel like sometimes people don't realize that sometimes abuse actually makes you a more humbler person, or it can change like how your character is and make it more realistic or more relatable to other people, because the normal people go through normal abuse. And, you know, having people, or having someone say, oh, I thought you were thin and you're fat, you know, I'm not coming for a masseuse because you're fat. You know, if that happened to me, no one, or just a normal masseuse, no one would give a shit. And yet if it was an actor, people would care more. And but at the same time, the abuse that normal people get could be far worse. And yeah, and I think if you're watching a good character, or if you're watching a good song, you know, you want it to be relatable to the average people. And if a song is relatable, or if a character is relatable to the average person, it makes that so much better. You know, I think Xander's character worked because I didn't know that it was an insert of Joss Whedon. I didn't know anything about that. But if that was the reason why it was so good, because he was trying to create a version of him that he wanted to be, and he put it inside a film, and I too was doing that same thing. I wanted to be this Buffy character, so I, you know, my higher self inserted myself in him, and he's into the show, and he inserted himself into the show. I mean, if that's how the show worked, then that could be the reason why I liked it so much. But yes, I do know that his actions are questionable. But then again, I think if you looked at the bigger scale of the actions of people, you know, people making fake food and stuff and selling it on, making plastic eggs and selling them off as real eggs, or plastic rice, or I don't know what, I found some stuff online that was just saying, or people that just find houses to rent that are on rent, move in there, get some sort of fake document to say that we are renting this house, even though it wasn't the owners that signed this. They're not giving the owners of the house a penny. And yet, you know, there's some people that do some absolutely terrible stuff. You know, they can live there for months and months and months, refusing to leave. The government doesn't give a shit, because why should they? Because they only care about their salaries and stuff, and they don't care about, you know, the homeowner who's probably got a mortgage and just needs to get rent, and shouldn't have just squatters living in the house, but you've got these stupid squatters' rights because you don't care. I don't know. You know, there's just, I don't want to talk about it because it's angering me. But you know, there's so many problems here, and yeah, I just, if there are problems in a set, I feel like it can make a character realistic. And if a character is realistic, people relate to it, and therefore you shouldn't just look at the negative. You should always look at the positive and the negative. But there's so much negative in this world, I know.